don't judge a book by its cover, because you don't know what somebody's going through. Everyone has problems. Everyone has something that they're dealing with on any given day.
The close friendships that I've been able to make here are even closer than I made when I was probably in my 20s.
You have to be comfortable with yourself, and you have to know yourself and be willing to help yourself in a very unique way.
Hey there, I'm Sagar Soni. If you are a chronic overthinker, a wannabe productivity expert, and is having a hard time understanding how to squeeze productivity out of every waking minute, but also learn how to take a chill pill, then you are in the right place. Let's learn from successful people, YouTubers, book authors, podcasters, and every other stranger that I can get my hands on. Well, figuratively, let's learn how they balance their life. Welcome to Beyond the Speech. Hello. Welcome, Bea and Beth, to come on my show Beyond the Speech. Just a brief introduction. I'll let you take over, but you two are the hosts of the podcast Social Leopards. What is the inspiration behind this podcast? What's the mission? What's the theme? And why did you choose that?
So Social Leopards came from a combination of things. Bea and I had a friendship that was evolving, and both of us were kind of talking, right, about what we could do that fueled both of our passions. And Bea, you work...
Yeah, I'm a school psychologist, so I work with a lot of children and families that deal with depression, loneliness, all kinds of issues related to that. So similarly related to what Beth does, but a little bit different. But there's a lot of things that we cross paths with when we talk about kids like that.
Right. I also work in the healthcare field administratively, but I see a lot of how loneliness impacts health and well-being. And so we thought about that and decided to start a podcast, but more from a person-to-person perspective, not something clinical or therapeutical, but just practical guidelines.
Yep.
I see. So it's just an ear to listen from other people's experiences.
Yeah,
yes.
And also resources to help people, kind of guide them to help if they need it, make it more relatable to real life, not make it so difficult. Like, if you're lonely, you might feel like you've got a problem. So we're trying to make it more normalize it in a way for people so they could, realize they're not alone and there's help out there. And here's strategies to help you with this.
Right.
I see.
The thing about it is that there are as many reasons that someone can feel lonely as there are ways to counteract it. And so we realized very quickly that we had a lot of material that we could cover over a long period of time that would touch kind of a variety of lives for a variety of reasons.
Yeah, from both of your professions, yes, absolutely. There are endless stories out there that you can talk about, different experiences, because it just keeps going on and on. My wife is a nurse as well, and she works in oncology. So she always tells me anytime I complain, she's like, you have no idea what real problems are. So stop complaining about it.
Yes.
So I completely understand that. From listening to your podcast, I think I've listened to almost all of your episodes.
Oh, thank you.
Not a problem. Yeah. The one thing that I keep reflecting back on is the importance of being with people, but also but accepting the need of isolation as well. So there is room for both. Yes. I say it's okay to step back once in a while. And I say step back because sometimes it's okay to stay by yourself and recenter yourself. But sometimes there is guilt associated with it as well. I say guilt because we always hear the notion that you should be making friends, you should be making new relationships, being by yourself is not okay. Those are the narratives we constantly hear. So what are your top tips for someone struggling with social anxiety or feeling isolated without feeling the guilt of stepping back?
Do you want to start?
Sure. I think the number one thing that we have realized as we've spoken with a lot of others over this past year especially is that you have to be comfortable with yourself and you have to know yourself and be willing to help yourself in a very unique way, which is another reason why I believe that there will be many podcast episodes where you might pick up one thing that works for you, but then you might discard the next piece of or the next tip that you receive. And so it is a mix and match in order to individualize your experience. There's a saying out there that says, it's okay to be not okay. And that is a true statement. However, it's not okay to use that as a reason to not feel okay all of the time.
Yeah.
And just live in a place of despair. So what our kind of mission is to talk to people about what they need to do to feel more comfortable and be able to take some of those steps to feel less lonely.
Yeah, and there's so many things you can do. There's so many options you have. I think when you can try different things. There's not a one size fits all that you said, Beth, but like people who have social anxiety, one of the top therapeutic interventions that I've read about and seen in action is just getting into a situation that's very uncomfortable with you by using small steps. For example, you are struggling with going out by yourself and having dinner. A lot of people don't want to be out having dinner or lunch by themselves. So maybe you think about like when you could go to this particular place when it's not very crowded, and you make a plan to go there. So giving yourself the option to just sit there maybe when it's not less crowded, and then see how that feels, and then go from there and just take more and more steps as you feel more comfortable.
I see. Do you listen to Subtle Art of Not Giving Enough podcast by Mark Manson? He's the author of the book, and he started his own podcast as well.
I have not listened to that one, but I have it on my list. I followed it, but
yes.
I have not listened to an episode yet.
But I've heard of him for sure.
I see. He actually made a video where people were afraid of being themselves, being afraid of being okay by themselves. And he did an entire episode on this where he talked about take one tiny step towards it, see how it feels, grow that comfort zone. Now, when that is, you are okay with that, now take the next step and then try it again in a larger crowd. Different.
Exactly.
It's the same topic that you are talking about, but in a different setting. So I understand that. The point is to take one small step, be okay with that, then take the next step, which is just outside your boundary.
Comfort zone, yes.
Right. Yep. When you've been alone for a long time, your brain kind of starts to, the chemistry of your brain actually changes. And I think that you have to retrain your brain to see that you can successfully interact with others. And especially we see this post-pandemic with some of the younger crowd that some of our Gen X, Y, Zers who find it even more difficult. And I feel like a lot of their relationships are digital. And so then they start to realize that they're missing out on something, and then they can't put their they can't put a name to it, or they don't understand what they're experiencing, and they're actually experiencing the lack of physical interaction, physical touch, physical anything. I can't tell you the number of young people that I have run into that through my volunteerism on a site that provides a listening ear to people. It's called 7 Cups. And I run into dozens upon dozens of young people who have never had an in-person relationship and believe that they've had full, meaningful relationships that have been completely digital.
Yeah.
Where Facebook or WhatsApp is the closest they've come.
Yeah, it's very deceiving. There are a lot of students that I work with that misconstrue having so many Facebook friends as actually having friendships. And then they realize they're extremely isolated. And then, of course, I get a referral to help them figure out how to actually make friends. And there's a big social skill deficit that the kids are experiencing now. And in one of my school districts, we actually run a social skills class to help them develop skills and help them understand how to develop friendships.
Yeah, that volunteering group 7 Cups, is that what it's about? People getting together, trying to understand what their current levels are and improve upon themselves? Is that what it's about?
So it's a unique website. I think everybody's heard of BetterHelp, and that's run by therapists. But this has actually got that plus a volunteer aspect. So I'm what's called a volunteer listener, and you can just go on and vent. And we can't give actual therapeutic advice, but we can help you brainstorm or help you work through a problem and ask you open-ended questions so that you can think through and give suggestions as to how you might perceive it a little bit differently based on your life experience, meaning my life experience. I can share that back with somebody and say, well, have you ever thought about it from this point of view? And it's not actual therapy, but it kind of does a little bit of the same thing around the edges. And as long as you're not actually giving therapeutic advice, then and the person is working towards just sorting it out on their own, it seems to be pretty effective for people who don't have serious issues.
I see. One thing that I would say that from just listening to what this is about, if nothing else, I think the best thing that comes out of is that they realize that they are not alone in this, and but just by chance, they would know that, oh, I'm not the only one suffering from this. There are countless others who are like me. So that's some great volunteering work that you are doing there.
Thank you.
How do you define yourselves, introverts or extroverts?
Extrovert.
Yeah, definitely extroverts.
Yeah, I see. How do you see the challenges with each of them? If there is someone out there, I know you have this email address where people share their stories. If somebody comes and says that they are an introvert, you know, that they want to become an extrovert, but then there is a difference in energy between an introvert and extrovert. What kind of challenges do you see in that if somebody wants to go from one kind to the other?
I think they would struggle with, making friends, having more than a friend, being in a group. They're probably a person who would, I do have a lot of introverted friends, and from my experience, they like to be just maybe with one person that, like with me, and they struggle with allowing other people to come in unless they get some good information about who is this person, how do you know those persons, is this person like, what are their interests, what are their dislikes like? So I think they would have to learn how to deal with more than one person at a time, and they need a lot more help to interact.
Some of the advice I always give is surround yourself with extroverts, because they're going to carry on most of the conversation, and all you have to do is smile and nod, but it still gets you out there and in social situations. And then that way you can be prepared to maybe take a step the next time.
That's a great point. Just surround yourself with people that you want to be. It's the same thing, right? It's the notion of if you want to become the sixth person of the similar group, go find 5 other people and be part of that. So this is the similar tip there. So this is a great tip, I would say. From listening to your experiences and your podcast, given the focus on different issues about relationship building, social issues, how do you encourage your listeners to balance personal growth, but also manage expectations that it's going to take some time? So be okay with that.
Mm-hmm. So you can't be too hard on yourself. It is a journey. And I think that's why we often talk about those small steps, sort of like the subtle art, and doing those micro progressions, because you can't just change overnight. And nobody can change you, only you can change yourself. And that starts with knowing what you're capable of and then challenging that and stretching just a little bit like a rubber band each time that you go out to try to show yourself that you can. And it is a journey. You take the next step and the next step and the next step thereafter, and all of a sudden you're out there doing it.
But it's not going to be a straight line. It's going to be progression and regression, because there'll be times when you're going to have a negative experience, and you have to learn how to balance that with the positive ones and still find the motivation to keep going.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, you can't beat yourself up too much. You have to. We talk a lot about self-compassion and making sure that you're doing a lot of self-care.
Yeah.
And I think that that's also very important, because it isn't a perfect world out there. And you will run into people who are not gentle souls, or they're not
interested in friendship for whatever reason.
Yes.
They just might not be in a position to, want to have a friend, or maybe they've got their plates full with something else. So it doesn't work out. The timing is wrong. So yeah.
So many, again, as many reasons that something might fail as there are that it might succeed, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. I think, in my experience, so I'm 33 years old. I feel like every person has to reach that point of that, okay, it has clicked for me. Now it has clicked for me. Now I understand the importance of journey, not the destination. You try to say as much as you want to a 20-year-old, he or she will obviously be frustrated about why can't I reach this as quickly as possible. I think that's that aspect too, that you have to go through certain experiences before it clicks for you that it's okay. This is part of reaching to that destination as well.
Yes.
I agree.
Yeah.
Patience is a virtue.
Yeah. Do you think this podcast is helping you answer questions for yourself, not just for your listeners? Do you see that it has affected how you look at building community and relationships?
Definitely.
How has it helped you?
Compassion. I think I have much more compassion for the difficulties that people have. And so I think that I've become a more compassionate person, listening to the stories and helping them succeed. And if I hear that somebody has been successful with the strategies that we've shared, that really makes me feel so much better about what we're doing.
Right. And I can't say enough about that. I feel exactly the same. We also very often say, don't judge a book by its cover, because you don't know what somebody's going through. Everyone has problems. Everyone has something that they're dealing with on any given day. You don't know how full their plate is. You don't know what happened 10 minutes before they encountered you. You don't know what they're looking forward to or not looking forward to. And so you have to actively listen to somebody in order to be able to receive them in a way that that is in a positive light. And so I always give the benefit of the doubt and always just take a non-judgmental approach to every conversation I have.
I think slowing down is the answer here, because every now and then you that's where frustrations and anger comes in too, because in the moment of heat, sometimes somebody says something to you, it's important to slow down, otherwise you are going to give back that energy, and now you are having a heated battle between you two, and it's hard to always be in that state of mind where maybe this person is going through something. So I'm going to step back. I'll give that person a little bit of time and then allow him or her to come back, and then we'll take it further. So I think there is room for, there will always come a time where you will feel like this is not going anywhere. So, and
Right.
both of you get frustrated. But then the importance of slowing down and really understanding that, okay, maybe that person is going through something. So let's give ourselves a little bit of break here. So there's some room for that too.
Yes. Absolutely. I do that with my kids all the time.
Yep. Yes. Slowing down is a very good, in general, message for everybody, because I think we're always rushing, and haste always makes waste. And I have lots of examples of things that I should have done differently, but that would take a long time to talk about that. So we'll just skip that for today. But yeah.
Well, and I recently looked into my human design, and I'm very fascinated by all of that.
Yes.
And right?
Yeah.
And learned that sometimes I do tend to want to fix something, and it may not be something that someone asked me to fix. And so part of that slowing down, which is excellent advice, by the way, thank you, is to make sure that you do take that breath and that you do listen. And sometimes that's all the other person wants, is a listening ear. They don't necessarily want something to be solved or resolved. They just want to feel heard. And I think that's probably one of the biggest takeaways I've taken. People may not come to our podcast to necessarily solve anything. They just want to feel uplifted and encouraged, and some of the words might resonate. I'm not going to say that we're going to solve anybody's problems, but I think just surrounding yourself with positivity is so much better than not doing so.
Absolutely. I listened to one of your episodes, and you talked about to never stop trying. Do you have something in your life that you have to constantly remind yourself to never stop trying? Is there anything specific that you're struggling with right now?
Wow, that's a great question.
Maybe constantly, energy as we get older, to have the motivation to keep doing the things you want to do and find ways to, I think, pick up your energy, whether it's through exercise, better sleep, change our diets. I feel like at this point in my life, it's just having that energy to do all the things I want to do is one of my particular struggles right now. What about you, Beth?
Same. I am not 33 years old. I will not tell you how old I am.
We're trying, though. We're trying to look up for you.
Inside my brain up here,
yes.
I don't feel like I am anywhere near my physical age.
Correct.
So, yes, that, the balance of what I want to do versus what I am capable of doing
Correct.
is probably a constant struggle.
I see. But you saying that you are not the age in here that you are physically, that's already a great achievement. So, so one day I aspire to be at that level. That's nice. I know, I don't know which one of you it is, but I think maybe both of you are suckers for motivational quotes or quotes in general. And that's okay. That's you. I believe you are into affirmations as well. And what I want to get into is that if you are in a bad situation, mentally, emotionally, whatever that is, how do you believe in yourself? How do you even stay positive? How do you say positive affirmations to yourself if you are not even in the mood? For example, forgive yourself. It's okay to rest. Let go of the past. Let go of the things that are outside of your control. But if you are not in the mood of that, how do you force yourself to reach that stage? Or what have you learned from other people telling their stories to you?
Oh, that is an excellent question. And I don't know that I have any magical answer to that. You're always going to take those steps back. You're not always going to succeed. You can't be happy all the time. So I think that's one of those moments when it's okay to not feel okay. And so then you have to take a step back and say, you know what? I got up this morning. Maybe I made my bed, or I made myself a healthy breakfast, or I didn't have that third cup of coffee like I really wanted, and celebrate those very, very small things. I went to work even though I would have rather just curled back up in a ball and stayed in bed, but I didn't do that. I went to work. Those are reasons to celebrate and get yourself back on track. And then that's when it's time to practice that self-compassion, which can get you back to feeling like you're ready to do the rest.
Another idea would be to add on to that, to have a journal of the things you appreciate. During pandemic, one of the things our coworkers and I did, since we were all working from home, is to think about 7 reasons that you're happy each day. And every day we would add to that list. And at the end, we had so many reasons to be happy. We could remind ourselves every day of those reasons. And that really helped us keep going.
That's great. This takes me back to one thing. Do you know who Matthew Dix is? He's the author of Some Days Today and Storyworthy. He talked about this thing called homework for life, where all he talks about is you can have the crappiest day, but at the end of the day, do this homework for life, where at the end of the day, give yourself 5 minutes where you write down everything, what happened during the day. He has a different twist on it because he is a storyteller. He thinks that everybody has a story to tell. You just have to look very carefully. But at the end of the day, if you summarize your day just for 5 minutes, which is similar to writing what makes you happy, at the end of the day, I believe that's in the same realm here.
Yeah. So yes, I like that idea. I might have to try that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, journaling in general, even if you're journaling things that are not positive, is helpful from a later on perspective to go back and reflect on those words that you wrote while you were upset when you're in a better state of mind. And it can give you a different perspective. And you're like, man, I can't believe I let that get to me to that extent. And I felt like that was the end of the world. But 2 days later, you've survived it. You've moved past it. Maybe you're having a better day. And then when you go back and you read those words, it means something a little bit different to you. So it's always worth that effort.
It's embarrassing. I've tried this. I've tried writing it down. And then I would give up for a week. I'm like, this is useless. This is not helping me at all. And so I started making a habit of writing the date at the top of my journal entry, just so that I can say, oh, it's been 2 weeks since I've opened this book. Now that was 2 months ago. I haven't opened that journal since 2 months. So it's going to be another one of those kicks where I'll be like, okay, I haven't journaled in 2 months. This is useless, and I'm going to get into that cycle again. But I need to get into the habit of homework for life, or what made you happy at the end of the day. I really like that. In terms of affirmations, I feel like the way you say that you cannot constantly be happy, the one thing that I have always resorted to, I don't know if it's right or wrong, is that I always tell myself on a crappy day that new game starts tomorrow.
Yes.
I just keep that in my mind, and I would wrap it up. The only thing that matters to me at the end of the day is having a good relationship with my friends and family and my wife. That's all I care about. So I would quit everything else for the day and remind myself that new game starts tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's what I tell myself all the time.
Yeah, I think I tell myself that all the time when I cheat on my diet, that tomorrow is a reset. So I agree with you there.
You don't have to tell me that. You can see that. You don't have to tell me about that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your podcast creation specifically. I know you are 13 episodes in. I love the idea of you having an email address where people send their personal struggles and just stories overall. What kind of feedback have you received from your listeners? Are they appreciative? Are they connecting with what you have to offer?
Yes. And sometimes it's just a thank you, or sometimes it's just a quick email or a comment in a podcast app that, or on YouTube. Not so much on the YouTube quite yet, but
No.
With suggestions about things that they're bothered by that they'd like us to do future episodes on. The ADHD came from listener feedback.
Yes.
We did an episode specifically about ADHD, and then we got new feedback quickly thereafter that it was very relatable.
Yes.
So those types of things are what we're really, fueled by.
Yes.
And I feel, and then those couple of stories that we've shared on episodes that where people just do say, "Hey, here's how I made a friend, and it was in a most unexpected way," or those types of things. So we have a whole little list of future episode fodder that we are working through and trying to figure out the best way to deal with. Some of it's pretty difficult because it deals with long-term isolation and perhaps some health conditions that would prevent a lot of progress. And so how to thoughtfully address that and in a hopeful, meaningful way. Bea has a quick story she can share about long-term isolation.
About my leg over here?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. So about a month ago, I slipped and fell and broke my ankle.
Left leg, not right leg. I know this, yeah.
Yes, and I'll tell you, I was asking, my friends were asking me, what is the most challenging thing you've gone through in your life? I've gone through many things in my life. This was the absolutely most challenging thing. And I have a huge support network. I have a wonderful husband. I have great friends. I've got community. I could still work from home. But for me, I'm an incredibly active person. I play tennis. I ski. I work out. It was the most debilitating, really horrible thing for me. I know it was just a month, but I really had to dig deep inside myself, and I could relate to people who imagine that the doctor said, you are going to be like this for the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. And I treat people like that. I have children that have permanent disabilities, and I know exactly what their lives are like. But it was a very challenging for me situation mentally. I was worried about, what's going to happen with my leg. How long is that going to take to recover? We have a ski trip planned. I'm probably not going to be able to do that. And I had to just remind myself of all the things I can do and be grateful for what my health in general. But it was something that really changed my perspective on life and made me appreciate even many more things that I have in my life, probably more than I have before. So, yeah. So, but we're going to do an episode because Beth had a similar experience several years ago. And I think probably experienced similar things. And we have another person that I'm trying to get onto our podcast who had a significant accident 25 years ago and is permanently paralyzed from the waist down. But she is a force. She works for a disability company, and she actually functions as if, nothing's happened, and she's an amazing person. So we'll get her perspective sometime soon.
It's interesting that you have to go through something in order for it to click within you that I am more than what I think I'm capable of. But you would never get there until you suffer a little bit.
Yes.
And you won't realize that in the moment of it. But once you look back to it, that's the irony behind it, that you would never know in the moment. You would only know when you look back.
Yes.
I think one of the things that I drive myself crazy with is I try to find parallels, and I'm always constantly trying to learn from every experience. That's just in my DNA somehow. And to draw the parallels like that. And, when Bee's foot broke, it reminded me of my longer term. I ended up having to have surgery. Long story. It was not fun. And it was during COVID. So there was also that socially isolated piece of it. And so I did experience a lot of loneliness during that particular time and place. And then that started moving into that. What if you had this going on long term?
Exactly.
How do you cope? How do you find the balance? How do you find socialization when you can't go out and get it? It has to pretty much come to you, or there are a lot of accommodations that have to be made.
Right.
And so we're working on one, maybe two episodes in that particular respect.
And the thing that I also thought about is, how strong are my actual friendships? Who is the person that's my true friend? And it's very surprising what happens. There were 3 or 4 people, Beth included, that were just so genuinely interested in helping me and came over and drove me somewhere or wanted to stop by. And so it was fascinating how much community I've created. I've been living in this area here for about 22 years. And the close friendships that I've been able to make here are even closer than I made when I was probably in my 20s. So it's a very interesting dynamic.
I see. Okay. Where are you located? I forgot to ask you that.
We're in the middle of Indiana.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay. I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Oh, okay.
Great.
I see.
Lovely city. I love Charlotte.
I just moved here 4 months ago and I love every bit of it.
Yeah, it's a great city.
I see. Why is your podcast called Social Leopards? Why leopards?
You or me?
You go ahead.
Okay.
You both thought of it.
So,
good.
A leopard is a very solitary creature, and it lives in the jungle, but the sightings of a leopard are very rare. The same is true of a social person. Or I mean, not a social person, a solitary person, right? Someone who is experiencing loneliness. There are so many of them out there, but often they go unnoticed or unseen. And so our kind of byline is solitary creatures navigating the social jungle. And so that's how Social Leopards came to be.
That's so perfect. I love that.
Thank you.
You have 13 episodes in, and that's the end of this year. How was this year? Did you feel the need to pump out more episodes? Did you feel that you need to and don't want to, but you have to maintain the consistency?
No, I think we want to. I think we're more motivated, at least I am, to do some more. And it's just unbelievable how much more we have to talk about. It's a constant, we get so many more ideas from emails from each other, from things we see, people we talk to. So I think we might not have enough time in our lives to cover everything, honestly.
Right. Well, we knew with the holidays we needed to take a break, and we also needed to stop and think about all the feedback that we have received and be thoughtful, because we don't want to just churn out a podcast to churn out an episode. We want to dig deeper. And so season 2, I'll give you the exclusive preview, is perspectives. And so we will be bringing guests on to the show, talking about their lived experience. And I think that that's going to bring a different dynamic. I don't know that it'll be all episodes during the season, but we do want to pepper them in and bring video in. We're going to kind of augment our YouTube channel, do some shorts, that sort of thing as well, to bring that video aspect in. And that's just kind of the next level, or the next step up, as we proved the concept during season 1. We're not doing this for number of downloads or number of followers or subscribers, although it is, our egos are definitely touched by that.
Yeah.
We are human, and feedback is always very much appreciated, and it does help. But we're doing this to try to make a difference. We're not doing it for any other reason.
I like the idea of your having that email address. I'm going to steal that from you, because that right away opens the doors for the listeners to get in touch with you outside of the comments, because email, I feel like people listen to different podcast platforms, right? So it's hard to get into a specific platform and go comment or leave a review and try to reach you. But the email is right there where they can constantly go back and forth with you. So I'm definitely going to steal that from you. And from your experience, just from what you just said right now, I feel like you prioritize authenticity more than consistency.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. And I will tell you, the email does bring forward a more personal, people that don't want others to see those comments. You get a lot more authentic feedback.
Yeah, I myself, when I comment on other people's podcasts, I appreciate the ones that have the email, so not everyone's going to see what I've said, because maybe somebody wouldn't like it, or I'm uncomfortable, so I think it makes it much more private, and people can be more authentic that way.
I see. Okay. Yeah, you said your season 1 has ended and season 2 starts 6th Feb 2025?
Yes, you've got it.
Yeah. Do you have episodes recorded for future releases, or are you still in the middle of it?
We have storyboarded, and we have a group of guests that we would like to bring on. And so we are definitely on our way. But next month is when we will get our first. We try to be 3 episodes ahead.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. Yeah. As soon as you messaged back saying that your producer has gone through the checklist, I'm like, you have a producer. Wow, you are much more serious about this than I am. So
we appreciate that. I appreciate that feedback.
Yeah, I'm very much interested to see what comes out of it in season 2, because I think there is room for both, where just you two on the podcast, but then perspectives is a great way to bring along other people who can share their stories, not just via email, but also for everybody else, for me to listen to. Yeah. Thank you very much for this. I really appreciate you taking the time out of this and coming on my podcast. I think this is going to be a good one for my listeners, and we'll see where we go from here. Maybe we'll get another one of episodes once I have 50 episodes released. So we'll get there one day.
We appreciate your time very, very much. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.